Good morning. I want to tell you a story, as always. And as a kid growing up in Ventura, in the 1980s, Camarillo was my backyard. Not the outlet malls or commuter traffic you see today, but real Camarillo, where dirt under your nails meant you earned something that day, where eucalyptus trees lined the old roads like green guardians, and broccoli fields stretched across the horizon like a checkerboard of labor and pride. The air smelled like salt, dust, and irrigation lines, and every breeze reminded you that you were near something pure. My dad would drive us down Laguna Road with the windows rolled down, pointing out where migrant workers toiled, legally. Hardworking folks who got their hands dirty because it was honorable. They weren't exploited. They weren't hidden in the shadows. They were part of the story. Back then, we didn't lock our doors. Not because we were naive, but because the people around us respected the boundaries. Lines mattered. Right and wrong were things you could still say out loud. That's why today feels like a betrayal to me. Because this morning, I read a headline I never thought I would see. The headline read, "ICE raids California pot farm in Camarillo." That's not fiction. It's not satire. That's a real story happening in the same fields where my childhood was rooted. It's not cartel territory, not a drug den in the hills, but a state-licensed cannabis farm celebrated by the ones in Sacramento who sit on high, and protected by the same politicians who swear they're champions of the children. Only now, we know the truth, and we've known for quite some time. 67 million aborted babies kind of gives you a heads up. But at this pot farm, 10 children were found working in those fields. 8 of them were alone, no parents, no guardians, no union, just tiny hands trimming marijuana buds, while activists screamed about injustice. The injustice wasn't the raid, though. It was what those kids were living before the raid. And yet, who got the sympathy? Not the children, not the ICE agents who were assaulted and shot at, not the federal officers. No, the tears poured for the illegal workers being deported. The mayor of Oxnard, Lewis MacArthur, was heartbroken over the aggression. California's own Congressman, Salud Carbajal, said, "This is deplorable. We don't do this on American soil." Well, Congressman, I've got news for you. What you let happen on American soil is a hell of a lot worse. We have children working in weed fields like indentured servants, and the outrage is directed at the people trying to stop it. Doesn't make much sense. What kind of country is that? When the law is seen as violence and lawlessness as virtue. Let me tell you what type of country. It's one that's forgotten who it belongs to. Donald Trump did not create this mess. He walked into it with open eyes and a closed fist. He told the American people the truth in 2016 and again in 2024, and both times they handed him the keys. Because deep down we still know the difference between right and wrong, between child labor and compassion, between asylum and abuse. Nearly 80% of voters now say they want tougher immigration enforcement. That's not extreme, that's a mandate. And not from billionaires or big donors, but from working people like you and me, from single moms in Bakersfield, from small business owners in Ohio, from veterans in Iowa, from every American who still believes that our laws aren't suggestions and our children aren't bargaining chips. This raid wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of clarity. For years, we've been told that any efforts to enforce immigration law is simply bigotry, that ICE officers are the villains, that sanctuary cities are sacred. But this week, in Camarillo of all places, the mask slipped, and we saw the truth. A state more concerned with illegal votes than innocent children. Leaders more furious about deportations than about children being forced to harvest weed in the shadows of their progressive utopia. What happened this week wasn't just a raid. It was a mirror. It showed us who's really being protected and who's being sacrificed. And for once, we had a president who didn't flinch, who didn't issue a polished statement about balancing compassion with security. No, Trump sent in the law, and the law did its job. Because the truth is, every illegal worker removed is a job returned to an American. Every child pulled from that field is a soul rescued from an abusive system. Every raid is a message. This land has rules, and those rules will be enforced. So to the kids who cried when the smoke finally cleared, not because of the raid, but because somebody finally came to rescue them, I say this: you weren't forgotten, you were rescued. And to the Americans watching this unfold, feeling like strangers in your own country, unsure whether anyone still sees what's happening, I say this: you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you're not powerless. You voted for this. Not for chaos, but for order. Not for cruelty, but for clarity. Not to tear families apart, but to stop the machine that's been using children as disposable labor while politicians sip Chardonnay and tweet about human rights. We are a nation of laws. We are a republic. And in this republic, the people still have a voice. And that voice is being heard, one raid at a time. Folks, join us tonight, Red Friday, 7 o'clock. Hope you have a great weekend if you can't stop by. But if you do, 7 p.m. Eastern at The Dumb Show. We'll see you then.